Welcome back to the channel. Today, BP and I will be going through the teams that were drafted for Season 1 of the Draft League Championships. There are some absolutely amazing teams and we are very excited for this season, but before we begin, if you are excited for the DLC content coming, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the uploads. But without further delay, let's get into it.
So with the first overall pick, we have QT, and he didn't waste any time at all by drafting Spectrier in the first round. Spectrier brings immediate speed and offensive pressure to the team while being able to effectively run sub, nasty plot, or Will-O-Wisp sets. It can skip that altogether if it wants to and run a choice item as well to immediately punch holes into a team that lacks any reliable ghost answers. QT continued his powerhouse picks with the likes of Urshifu Rapid Strike, Zarude, and Scizor, all of which by themselves are threatening, but put them together and you have one of the scariest offensive heavy teams drafted. QT backs up his offense with the best hazard setter in the game with Lamora, who can also serve as a hazard removal itself with Mortal Spin. Finally, QT finishes strong with his team's Terra captains, using Meloetta, who can Terra into a normal, fairy, or ground type, Bellybolt, who can Terra into an electric, water, or flying type, or lastly Swanna, who can Terra into a flying, ground, or steel type. Overall, QT's team looks to excel by pressuring and overwhelming his opponents with his powerhouse picks, supported by a well-rounded mix of coverage options and utility.
The first ever VDL champion, Tom, got the second pick, and he grabbed a really scary balance core focusing around Dragapult. Pult is highly considered as the best Pokemon in draft due to its high speed, great offenses, and a crazy diverse move pool, allowing it to run many different sets and fill many roles. He then grabs a few undervalued Pokemon, including Pheasantipity, an amazing support Pokemon with his ability Toxic Chain, and a wide supporting move pool. Another undervalued threat is Terra Entei. Being able to change into a grass type helps patch up its weaknesses to water and ground, and then Serena, giving Tom a reliable rapid spinner. After grabbing these offensive and supporting Pokemon, we see Tom draft an incredible defensive core in Alola Mola and Ting Lu, who support each other very well, and their shared grass weakness not being a problem for this team at all. Ting Lu is the only spike setter on Tom's team, which could be troublesome later in the season as it might not always want to run hazards. Rounding out the team, we have Thundurus Incarnate and Sneasler, the former being a powerful electric type that has Prankster Thunder Waves and Taunts, and the latter being a crazy strong Unburden Sweeper, but this team doesn't have any terrain support, so I'm curious on how Tom handles that this season.
Well, you have to follow up a VDL champion with a Paldea United champion as well, and we are taking a look at Techno's team. In the first round, Techno secured Galarian Slowking, who we all know performs exceptionally well as a slow pivot with chilly reception, as well as an offensive presence in its own right with its stab and coverage moves. Techno later drafted Rillaboom to not only cover the ground weaknesses in Slowking, but to enable one of his team's Terra captains, Hitmonlee, who can Terra into a fighting, dark, or electric type. While having the option to abuse Unburden, that is not Techno's only option when it comes to his team. Next up, we have Ursaluna Bloodmoon and Meowscarada as his team's heavy hitters. Techno's defensive mons appreciate the terrain support from Rillaboom as well, with Tinkaton, Lantern, and lastly Colossal, who also serves as this team's final Terra captain if he wants to lose the ground weakness altogether. Colossal can Terra into a fire, water, or ghost type to function as a spin blocker while also setting up hazards at the same time. Overall, this team brings plenty of support options while also threatening strong offensive options that may prove hard to counter. We'll have to wait and see if the decision from Techno to not commit fully to terrain abuse was the right call or not.
I decided to build my team around Sun, focusing on two of the best wall breakers under Sun support in Walking Wake and Ogerpon Hearthflame. Very little likes to switch into a Hydro Steam or Ivy Cudgel when boosted by the Sun. Torkoal is my Sun engine, arguably the best option to do so, not only providing weather support to the team, but also supporting the team through Rapid Spin or utility moves like Clear Smog, Yawn, or Stealth Rocks. While Sun may be the core focus of the team, I still wanted to be left with options that don't have to be Sun dependent. I decided to pick up Hisui and Gudra as a tank that can still put out considerable damage, and paired with Screamtail to provide wish support to keep the team healthy. Screamtail can of course benefit from the Sun as well, giving me multiple ways to build this Pokemon. Finally, Terapagos felt like it fit very well, as my team was very weak to hazards, and it appreciates wish support from Screamtail, allowing it to use its Terra Shell ability multiple times during a battle.
VDL brought the Sun, so in retaliation, Paldea United had to bring Rain. Not only did Jake bring Rain, but he also managed to secure electric terrain spam as a potential playstyle, making prepping against this team an absolute nightmare. The VDL will have to account for both options in their team prep, which may prove to be easier said than done. On the terrain side, we have Iron Valiant, who can now afford to run a better item instead of holding booster energy. We also have two mons that appreciate both rain and electric terrain, and Iron Jugulus, who can fire off 100% accurate hurricanes, and Jake's overall first pick, Iron Treads, who is one of the most versatile options in the draft format. Offensive, support, defensive, Treads can easily perform all these roles and will prove to be invaluable to Jake's team. With his rain core, we of course have Pelipper, the best rain setter, providing default support and momentum with U-turn. Our Chaladon with the ability to fire off one-turn electro shots, and lastly Jake's first Terra Captain Kingdra. Kingdra can Terra into a water, electric, or steel type to help flip some of its type matchups. Jake also backs up Kingdra with a Terra Brambleghast that can Terra into a ghost, fairy, or ground typing. This team structure has always been theory crafted in Paldea United, but has never seen actual play yet. So will the terrain build prove to be threatening force in Season 1 of the DLC? We'll have to wait and find out.
With the 6th pick, Tog decided to forego the offensive styles of teams that we have seen up until this point in favor of a combination Regenerator and Sand offense. Looking at this team on paper, I am super thankful I don't have to play against it. Tog looks to bring an unkillable roster of Mons, including his first pick, Tornadus Therian, who can provide knockoff support and momentum with U-turn, while also threatening big damage with nasty plot boosted Bleak Wind Storms or Heat Waves. Slowking and Hydrapple only strengthen this team's bulkiness and provides multiple coverage moves to wear down opposing teams. Hydrapple can also Terra out of its 4x weakness to ice attacks when needed by changing into a grass, rock, or water type. In case any of his walls become too low, Tog also drafted Sylveon, who can keep the team healthy with Wish as well. To balance out the defense on this team with some much needed offense, Tog drafted the Sand Rush duo of Excadrill and Houndstone, the latter being this team's final Terra captain who can Terra into a ghost, fairy, or fighting type. Overall, this team will be one that takes careful planning to pick apart, otherwise, fear being worn down to the point where Sand Rush boosted sweepers will clean up.
So like you've said, Vortex, we have seen some pretty offense-heavy teams so far in the draft on both sides. Similar to Tog, he decided to slow down the pace a bit and bring one of the more balanced teams in the whole draft. Vortex managed not wanting to play against Tog, but I'm personally glad that I don't have to play against this team. AP drafted Goldengo in the first round, which we all have seen perform well across both our leagues, and is easily a mon you can focus an entire team around. With its ability to prevent hazard removal, AP also paired it with Gliscor, arguably one of the best hazard sack mons in the game, who can also function as a swords dancing sweeper when enabled. AP continued to enhance his backline and defenses with mons like Tentacruel, Clefable, and Orthworm, providing utility and crucial defensive coverage to the team. With all of these defensive mons and momentum gaining opportunities, AP looked to add to his offensive presence with the likes of Roaring Moon and his Terra captains Espeon, who can Terra into a Psychic, Fairy, or Ground type, Hariyama, who can Terra into a Fighting, Steel, or Water type. Overall, AP's team looks to be one of the more threatening combinations to the VDL, piloted by one of Paldea United's best. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what AB can do in Season 1 of the DLC.
Next up is the top chef in the VDL, Starry, who had the 8th overall pick. Being later in the draft, there was some worry that Starry may miss out on some of the crucial picks for their team, but that was very quickly proved wrong, with his first 2 picks being Great Tusk and Hisuian Samurott. Tusk going this late into the draft was an absolute steal, and will easily be an MVP for Starry's team. The ability to play as a defensive spinner and rock setter, while also being a knockoff user or absorber, but Tusk can also easily run a speed boosted bulk up set to provide late game cleaning potential to Starry's team. Samurott being the best spike setter in the game only goes to further the damage this team can rack up from hazards alone, setting up the rest of Starry's team to clean up. Sinistra is a great spin blocker while covering many of the type matchups Tusk and Samurott want to avoid. Starry also drafted some very fast, hard-hitting Pokemon like a Namorous Incarnate, as well as Jolteon and Lycanroc, serving as his team's Terra captains. Jolteon can Terra into an electric, ice, or flying type, and Lycanroc into a rock, ice, or ground type. I'm personally interested what kind of sets Starry has in mind for some of these Lycanroc Terras, so we will have to wait and see what he cooks up later on. Overall, this team seems to focus on consistent hazard damage, wearing down teams enough for his faster threats to come in and clean up. You never know what to expect from Starry, but this team can easily be one of the bigger threats for the PUDL.
As the last pick for Paldea United, I decided to focus my team around a strong Dragon, Fairy, and Steel core, and with that, my first pick was Garchomp. Garchomp can serve multiple purposes on any team. Hazard options, Swords Dance scale shots, or even special options with Draco Meteor. Garchomp fits the role of a flexible dragon type that benefits my team well. To round out that core, I drafted Corviknight and Florges, which will support the whole team with Wish, as well as serving as one of my Terra captains, being able to Terra into a Fairy, Water, or Ground typing. The team also has strong offensive presence with Iron Moth, Hydreigon, and Quaquaval for additional hazard removal and late game cleaning with Moxie boosts. To make up for the lack of speed, I also drafted Rabambi for sticky web support when needed, and paired it with my final two captains, Lurantis, who can Terra into a grass, ghost, or electric type, and Meowstic, who can Terra into a psychic, fire, or fairy type. I'm very happy with how the team turned out on my board, and I'm excited to see what some of these mons can do.
The final pick goes to the VDL and Matt, who drafted Raging Bolt as his first pick. Raging Bolt can easily snowball once Calm Minds are set up with its great stab coverage, including Thunderclap to bypass would-be counters that may outspeed and threaten Bolt's sweep. To assist in that setup, Matt also drafted Grimmsnarl to provide uncontested screen support, as well as Parting Shot to enable that strategy further. Empoleon rounds out the team's Fairy, Dragon, Steel core with great type synergy, easily switching into the Ice and Fairy types that Bolt does not want to stay in on. The team support does not stop there though, with Deoxys Defense and Gligar both providing great hazard setting and pivoting options with teleport and U-turn respectively. This team can also provide some much needed offensive pressure with the likes of Conkeldurr, Salazzle, and Cinccino. Lastly, we have the team's Terra captains with the hazard removing duo of Cyclizar and Cryogonal, the former being able to Terra into a normal steel or fairy type, and Cryogonal able to Terra into an ice, electric, or ground type. In addition, Matt also comes in with a Terra Trevenant that can Terra into a grass, water, or fairy type. And with that, we are ready to kick off Season 1 of the DLC. Let us know who you think has the scariest team and which league you're rooting for down in the comments below. The Week 1 recap will be out next Wednesday, where BP and I will recap the games, get coach interviews, and give our thoughts on the upcoming matchups. That's about all I got. Peace.